Waiters, what Valentine's Day disasters have you witnessed? Story 1. 16 years in hospitality gives you some good stories. The most awkward? My first job as a waitress, a guy wanted to propose to his girlfriend. He came in 2 months before to book and had everything figured out. He planned to pop the question during dessert. We had champagne, balloons, and sparklers prepped for the big moment. The time comes, he drops to one knee, gives a speech about his love for her. He asks, she says no, puts the ring in her bag, finishes her dessert, and leaves. Quite possibly the most awkward thing I've had to witness, alongside around 200 other people. The manager gave him everything for free. He felt that bad for him. Cringed inside every time I saw him after that. The most fracked up? I was working as a duty manager and one of the tills kept dropping off the network. As I was trying to fix it, I could clearly hear the conversation at the table by the waiter station. It started out sweet enough, with her excitedly telling him she was pregnant. He went quiet and didn't say anything for a bit, and then asked her what the plan was. She said she was keeping the baby. He said he didn't want kids and had told her this. She got upset and said she thought he'd be happy and change his mind when he found out. By this point, I've fixed the till, but am unable to step away from this car crash. Turns out she stopped taking the pill without telling him, thinking she could turn him around. He said he knew she could be a little nuts sometimes, but this was next level. He told her it was over and she could send someone to collect her things as he wanted nothing more to do with her. He called me over to pay for the bill and just left. The guy never ever shouted. He just calmly went, "Forget this," and noped out of there. I couldn't even look her in the eye, just left her to leave in her own time. The funniest. Managing hotel room service when there was a Valentine's package that included getting each course of the special menu delivered to your room. More than a few couples thought it was a good idea to call for the next course and then start having spicy time. Having to help with deliveries as reception fracked up the bookings. I had the privilege of people answering the door naked, seeing adult toys strewn around the room, and one where the other members of the threesome were carrying on in the background. After complaints of similar instances from my team, I had to take action. I ended up having to call the offending guests and tell them if they could not respect my team by answering the door in at least a closed dressing gown, they could come down and collect the rest of their meal from the restaurant. Bonus from the same night. Had to call an ambulance for a woman with a dislocated shoulder. The guy admitted that they were trying to recreate I don't know if I can say this word. It starts with a B and sounds like UAE type scene in the shower using conditioner as the product. He slipped in the conditioner and fell on her. Oh. As far as the first one, do you think that woman deserved to keep the ring after she said no? That just seems like that's really bad form. Like she wasn't supposed to do that. It was, I don't know. What do you think about that? Even if you say no, do you think a woman is still entitled to the ring? Story 2. I was the manager of a wings and pizza place with a full bar. Definitely not the kind of place you'd take someone for a romantic Valentine's Day dinner. But it was still busy because some people aren't very tactful. We had a guy who had called ahead and asked if we could put a ring in a dessert for him, and of course, we obliged. He dropped the ring off the day ahead, and I put it in the safe in our office to keep it secure. Fast forward to Valentine's Day. The couple shows up, and they're obviously in love, that she didn't seem to notice or care about the fact that he had brought her to a middle-of-the-road place with a sports bar atmosphere on the most romantic day of the year. They ordered champagne, well, the local winery's best sparkling white, entrees, and it was almost time for dessert. I had used my chef skills to whip up a special chocolate strawberry tart that wasn't on the menu, just for this occasion, because why not try to make their night at least a little fancy? I went to the safe to get the ring, and it wasn't there. I was freaking out big time. I asked everyone there if they knew what the frack had happened to it. My assistant manager on site had no idea, so I called my other assistant, who also had the safe code, and they didn't know either. Finally, my bar manager mentioned that one of the owners had been in earlier and spent a little time in the office. So at my wit's end, I called the owner. It turns out that he had seen the ring in the safe and thought it was something a customer had left behind. Figuring that he had come into an extremely lucky situation, he decided, like the scumbag that he was, that he'd take it for himself and save money on a gift for his wife on Valentine's. So I asked the server and bar manager to help stall the couple. The server told them that we were going to do something special for their big date, and to hold tight. I ran out, hopped in my car, and rushed to get the ring from the owner's house because he was, as I had mentioned, a scumbag and didn't want to be bothered with bringing the ring to the restaurant himself. The bar manager went over to the table and did some complicated tableside cocktail mix that had a bunch of flair bartending tricks and ended up with a flaming shot that once dropped into the rest made it smoke. I was really disappointed when I heard about all this because I would have loved to see it instead of breaking a ton of traffic laws on my quest to get the ring. Finally, I rushed back in after about 15 minutes of being on the brink of a heart attack, placed the ring on the dessert, and had their servers take it out. At that point, just about the entire staff was watching the table, and when we saw the look on her face, my heart finally started beating again. She said yes, and I started looking for somewhere else to work that very next day. This person should have been running the restaurant. They seem to have everything under control, and this owner seems to be just out for themselves. He must not be making enough money at this restaurant if he thinks it's okay to just take a ring. Awful. Story 3. I worked at a pretty high-end Mediterranean bistro. My second Valentine's there. It was probably the busiest night I've ever worked as a server. We had reservations that booked basically the entire restaurant, including the bar and patio, from 4 p.m. to 11 p.m. No walk-ins were to be seated unless a reservation was canceled, or someone with a reservation didn't show up. Most of the customers were pretty understanding and either waited or simply left. One dude, however, kept pushing and pushing, asking every 10 minutes how much longer until he's seated, constantly saying how he's a regular customer and how his date is going to be there at 7. He got there at 6. We insisted that once a table was available and all the customers before him were seated, he would get a table, but because of the amount of reservations, we couldn't guarantee he would even get a table at all. At about 6:50, the guy loses it, fast walks up to the hostess stand where the reservation book is, grabs the reservation book, and practically runs out the front door. Now everything is going to complete smeg because the only copy of the reservations for the night that is barely half over is gone. 2 of the owners ran outside to follow the guy and try to get the book back, but by the time they got out, he had already left the parking lot. Even better, 2 hours later, chaos is still running rampant, and the dude shows back up saying he has a reservation for 2. 3 of the 5 of the owners, all brothers, escorted the dude and his date out to the parking lot and banned him from the restaurant permanently. They even took a picture of him and posted it in the window saying, "Do not serve this man." Too long didn't read. Salty dude without reservation steals reservation book and then tries to come back later. Edit. If anyone wants to use this for a sitcom, feel free. Just let me reprise my role as the waiter and we'll call it even. That's a good deal. I would do that. But really, I mean, if you're going to do this and you're going to be a jerk, taking the book, yeah, that was a way to be a total jerk. It's an idiot. It's being an idiot if you're coming back and just claiming idiocy and just claiming innocence on this. No, no way. No, 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 no. Shouldn't have done any of that at all, by the way. None of it. Story 4. This was relayed to me by a close friend. Older woman, probably in her upper 90s, with her teenaged grandson at a semi-classy restaurant. She was dressed to the nines, and the grandson was in a nice button-up and dress slacks. As they got seated at their table, the grandson placed a framed photo of what my friend assumed was the boy's grandfather and husband of the older woman. Found out it would have been their 70th wedding anniversary, but he had passed suddenly but peacefully a few months back. The grandfather had always wanted to take her to a nice restaurant, but never had the time or money to do it. So the grandson saved up his pay from the last couple of months and even got some donations from other relatives and took her to the restaurant. They ate dinner, remembering all the good times with the man. They had my friend take a picture, and she did. They tipped my friend very well. By happenstance, my friend ran into the young man some weeks later to find out the grandmother passed away a few days after that night, peacefully in her sleep, holding a photo of her beloved husband. She was so happy he could make that night special to her. Said it was the only day he saw her smile since his grandfather passed away. He got the picture they took at the restaurant printed in wallet size and carried it around with him in his wallet. Edit. Fixed some spelling and added more details after speaking with my friend again. I'm not a great writer, so this might diminish the story. I tried, though. Thank you for the award. And I posted this to bring something a little different to the thread other than cheating spouses. It's sad because the lady lost her soulmate of 70-something years before Valentine's Day, which also would have been their wedding anniversary. Story 5. Not waitstaff, but I used to work front desk at a hotel. On Valentine's Day, I was working the night shift, and this woman comes down with a cut above her eye, looking like she just won a few rounds in the ring with a boxer. Woman starts sobbing and asks us to call the cops, which we do immediately. Turns out this girl's boyfriend just beat the smeg out of her during a fight, and from what I could tell, this probably wasn't the first time. So after the cops show up and haul the dude off, my manager offers her a different room on comp as we need to leave the guy's stuff where it is for him to pick it up the next day. She accepts, and I go up with the woman to help her collect her stuff and move to the new room. There were a bunch of bottles of alcohol in the room, and she donated them to the front desk staff. I got a bottle of Hypnotic and some vodka. Manager got a bottle of Patron. Cherry on top of everything, the dude's wife called later that night saying someone had stolen his card as he was out of town on a business trip. Never one to defend an abuser, I told her where she could find her husband. Fun times. Story 6. A couple sitting at the bar were enjoying their night out. The man got up from his bar stool and left for the bathroom. As his girlfriend was alone and absolutely wasted at the bar, a random woman approached and revealed that she recently matched with the woman's boyfriend on Tinder and had hooked up a week earlier. The drunk girlfriend refused to believe this story, so the woman showed her his Tinder profile and their conversation. The boyfriend returned to a drunk, sobbing, and screaming girlfriend. I felt like I was watching a reality TV show. It was incredible. The poor girl was basically carried out of the bar by her boyfriend of 3 years, whom she just discovered has been cheating on her for who knows how long. It was the most dramatic moment I've ever experienced, and it was absolutely none of my business. Edit. I was a barback at the time, and this couple sat directly in front of the place I spend most of my time, the glass washing station. Edit 2. For those wondering how the woman knew the couple was in a long-term relationship, I really don't know. My guess is she figured out the same way I did, based on listening, body language, and the fact that this woman was overly touchy and liberal with cheek kisses and such. It was fairly obvious. Regardless, she approached out of concern and curiosity, and she succeeded in outing the guy, which resulted in a very upsetting scene. This woman just showing up and talking to the girlfriend is kind of like the serial unaliver in a horror movie just showing up out of nowhere. But I think it was probably due to the fact that this dude took this girl to the very same place he took his girlfriend to. So we all know what the lesson is to learn from this, right, folks? That's right. Don't cheat in the first place. Don't do it. Story 7. Not a waiter, but I was a pastry chef at this big resort in Cape Cod. We got a special order from this guy who was coming in for his anniversary, Valentine's Day. He wanted his dessert to have "Will you marry me" written on it so he could pop the question when it came out. He called ahead to the front and back kitchen, even came in himself that morning to make sure it was good to go. The whole crew was behind him. We had cooks all night coming in to ask if it had happened yet. I wrote the inscription on the plate and dressed it to the nines with gold leaf and expensive chocolate. I'm taking a picture of the plate just before it's set to go out and notice our head waiter come in with a weird look on his face. He said plainly, "They don't need it." She broke up with him before the entrees hit the table. Story 8. I was eating in a fine dining establishment, Chili's, several years ago. In the next booth was a really young guy who had a big bunch of roses on the seat next to him. He kept looking at his watch, looking at the roses, and popping open a ring box for a peek at the ring. He did this for a half hour or so, then began calling and texting someone, presuming his girlfriend, over and over. As we were waiting for our check, he handed my wife the roses, mumbled something, and walked out. Poor guy. Edit. I don't consider Chili's a fine dining experience. My wife and I had done some shopping and stopped off for a burger and beer afterwards.
Please like and subscribe if you made it this far. I hope you'll enjoy the rest of the video and have a wonderful day.
Story 9. Back when I served food at one of those super touristy seafood restaurants, I worked a Valentine's Day double shift. For lunch, this younger couple came in celebrating their 1-year anniversary. I offer my congratulations and proceeded to do my usual spiel before taking orders. The girl is looking more and more dismayed the longer I talk. Finally, I get to the end and ask if there are any allergies. She looks directly at her boyfriend and states, "Yes, I'm allergic to fish and shellfish," then looks over at me, very sad. I made sure every aspect of her meal was fine for her, but it was that look of, "We've been dating a year and he still takes me to a restaurant that could unalive me" that really did it for me. Story 10. I was a delivery guy for a fruit bouquet company, and I had 2 arrangements from the same guy. Routes were made for me, and the truck was loaded, so there was no way I could mess this up. Delivered both arrangements to the appropriate address. I headed back to the store to find the store owner and the guy who sent these in an argument. The idiot put the wrong name on the houses, and it was on the card with the arrangement, along with the phone numbers. So both women called each other and then called the guy. He tried to say it was my fault. Then the person who took the order. He ordered it online. All we did was import the order. I hate Valentine's Day because of that place, but man, that was great. Story 11. I had a Section 1V day that had a marriage proposal, a 40th anniversary, and a breakup all at the same time. The breakup was the worst. The guy brought his high-class date a gift, a mini ceramic bear holding balloons. He presented it when I was at the table, and she looked at it like it was a hot turd. I just knew this was not going to end well. She left at the end of the meal and must have said something because he stayed at the table for another 40 minutes, head down and crying. I felt bad. He saw the celebrations going on at the other tables. Story 12. Old man proposed to an old woman. He tried to get off the chair to kneel, tripped and fell, and I assume broke something since he couldn't get back up and we had to call an ambulance. My manager had to drive her teeth to the hospital separately because she had taken them out to eat her soup, Lord knows why, and left them on the table in confusion. Edit to add, I don't know if she said yes. My manager didn't get to see them at the hospital, only passed her teeth to the nurse. Thank you kindly for the gold and silver, though. Story 13. There was a note in our reservations that was an engagement. They wanted champagne, a specific seat, and a bunch of other stuff. The server comes up to the table with something like, "So I read we're celebrating an engagement. Congratulations!" Confusion from the woman, glaring from the guy. He hadn't proposed yet. She ruined it. When I proposed to my fiancée, I kept it a very small circle of people knowing so nothing could get spoiled. My grandfather didn't know till the day of because he has dementia. Her best friend is still mad I never told her, but she had ruined a birthday surprise months prior and I couldn't trust her after that. Story 14. These two were on a date, and the guy went to use the bathroom. The girl just up and left after he went to the restroom. When the guy came back, he sat around for a while until asking his waitress where she went. She replied by saying that she left. The guy then asked the waitress if she would go on a date with him. The waitress said no. Story 15. Not a waiter, but in my strip club bouncer days, we had one of our regulars get suited up and bring flowers in one V-Day to try and woo one of the dancers. It did not work. Pro tip, if every time y'all hang out it involves you giving her money, she's not into you. Worked at a chain barbecue restaurant. Was a line cook but could see in the dining room. Had a lady and her kids, early teens, come in turn to be seated. She started to freak out, crying, yelling, and left. Turns out the table in the corner was her husband and another lady on a date. Story 16. A guy proposed to his girlfriend, and she said no. The guy threw his arms up and ran out of the building. Later, while waiting for someone to pick her up, she told us it was completely out of the blue because they'd only been dating for a few months. Another V-Day, a guy raised a huge fuss over the fact that we wouldn't serve liquor to his underage girlfriend. Story 17. In college, I waited tables, and Valentine's Day was always a good one in terms of tips. I once saw a couple come in to eat. Halfway through the dinner, the man's wife shows up to surprise the couple. The wife took the wine bottle and poured the remnants on the husband's head, took off her ring, and told the girlfriend she could have him. He tipped me $100. Story 18. Had a man and woman sharing dessert, and the man playfully put a bit of the ice cream on her nose. She then did the same, and he did it back once more, but with a different flavor of ice cream. She flipped out at him because, "You know I like chocolate the most. Why would you waste it, you idiot?" In the end, she stormed out because the man couldn't comprehend how much she was blowing up the situation. Too long didn't read. Man puts ice cream on woman's nose. She's fine with it the first time, but second time she rages and leaves. Story 19. I was working as a waitress in a sushi restaurant, and Valentine's Day was an all-hands-on-deck shift. This guy I had just started seeing wanted to go out, but I told him that working in food service, you never get Valentine's Day off, and we'd just have to celebrate the day after or the weekend after. Nope. He got so upset that he went and asked a different girl out, came to the restaurant I worked at on V-Day, and sat in my section. He then proceeded to spend the entire evening making a fool out of himself and making his date uncomfortable as he tried to make me jealous. Needless to say, we didn't go out again. Ever. Story 20. I blew my car's tire, and my friend came in to bail me out. We're both straight dudes and forgot it was Valentine's. Decided to have dinner, and we both were coming from an important meeting, so had suits on. We didn't catch on until the end how the entire waitstaff thought we were just the cutest gay couple. Story 21. I served at a Japanese hibachi restaurant, and once had a couple come, and the dude dumps her after the meal. She then gets up and throws up a trail probably a good 20 feet as she runs to the bathroom. The dude got up and left the girl, and I was left to clean the mess.
Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.